Tonight on Business Live, Finance Ministry details how it plans to honor coupon payments and maturing old bonds. Meanwhile, a group of 20 large economies agreed to establish a creditor committee to work on Ghana's debt cancellation request. We'll bring you details. Also, ratings agency S&P indicates intention to raise Ghana's credit rating if there is more pronounced economic recovery. And prices of petrol and diesel are expected to fall between 3.7 and 4.04%. We'll hear from the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana. We have details of these and many others coming your way, all in a moment. Please stay. Pleasure you could stay with us. I am Pious Kojo Backah. To our very first story, which of course we are following up for you, the Finance Ministry has provided details on how it plans to honor coupon payments and maturing old bonds. Well, this was captured in its latest release dubbed Domestic Debt Exchange Program. And I will bring you up to speed on the statement issued by the Finance Ministry. It reads, following the successful settlement and conclusion of Ghana's Domestic Debt Exchange Program, the government announces the following developments. 1. Firstly, the newly issued bonds have been settled and listed and will become the new benchmark bonds for the fixed income market. The Ministry of Finance will work with relevant stakeholders as agreed to ensure that these new benchmark securities become the basis for deepening the domestic sovereign bond market. Secondly, in fulfillment of the assurance given by government to bondholders who did not tender, the ministry is taking administrative steps to ensure that payments of these coupons and principals of the old bonds resumes by 13th March 2023. Thirdly, on Friday, 24th February 2023, S&P Global Ratings raised Ghana's local currency sovereign credit ratings from selective default to CCC plus or C. This acknowledges the completion of the DDEP with a successful delivery of new securities to bondholders. In doing so, the selective default is substantially secured or cured. Now, the above statement milestone is further expected to accelerate the engagement with our external creditors. The government of Ghana also takes this opportunity to assure our external creditors of their equal importance to the Republic of Ghana. We will therefore continue to work together to advance the progress of our external debt treatment in order to ensure Ghana's long-term macroeconomic stability. And this is the very latest coming in from the Ministry of Finance. My colleague George Yafe joins me in studio and of course has been monitoring development in that sector. George, grateful you could join me on Business Live. Now, why this statement in the first place?
Well, this statement is coming up because we got the understanding earlier on from the Ministry of Finance that when it concludes the settlement for the new bonds under this domestic debt exchange program, it needs to update investors and bondholders on the plan to settle those maturing bonds. First, you got the understanding that a week after the settlement, which is 23rd of February, government should start the payment. That means it should have happened from this Thursday. Government has come to first give us an update on that the payment to resume by March 13th. What we are engaging the people behind the scenes working on that is that there is the likelihood that the payment will start from this week. But for the fact that these things are quite technical, trying to still work on these new bonds, put things together, because when the payments are done, it is not going out to you as Kojo Backah. You are doing a bulk payment that could affect about maybe 10,000 bondholders or 15,000 bondholders. So you need to work out the real administrative processes. And they are still working on that process, and they are not sure that it will be completed this week or not. And that is why they gave that update saying that by 13th of March. It means that the payment could commence this week, but just trying to be safe and ensure that if there are any technical glitches, it doesn't affect the payment. It means that they are telling us that by 13th of March, the payment could start. It means that before that, they could start making the necessary payment to these bondholders that didn't participate in the domestic debt exchange program and have had their coupons mature from the 3rd of February to 14th and then 20th and start making the necessary payments as well.
I guess this should send a positive signal to bondholders.
And it is. And if you go through the statement, let's look at the point one that is coming from the Ministry of Finance. And if you go through that statement again, it gives us some clear indication that government also wanted to, it says that firstly, the newly issued bonds have been settled and listed and will become the new benchmark for bonds in the fixed market. It means that with respect to the rates that they were offering, that 10% and 15%, government is trying to use these debt exchange program or the rate that is offered on these new bonds to reset the whole interest rate regime. We are looking at somewhere around from 20-30% to try and drive it down. Because if you look at our budget, and you look at the amount of money that this country is paying in terms of interest payments on bonds, and it doesn't make sense, some would say. Yeah. So they are giving us an indication that going forward, they want to look at a situation where government is paying an interest rate of about 10% on these long-term bonds and about 15%. So there's some resetting going on here in terms of the interest payment on these bonds for bondholders. And that will be quite significant because the whole idea about this whole program is meant to try and restructure our debts and restructure our interest payments and all those things. So if this is going to work, that would be good for the country going forward. So it gives us some indications about the restructuring of interest payments on these papers. And again, sorry, you make a point.
All right, so I just want to find this from you, that what will this mean to our external creditors?
Well, what it means to our creditors is that we are taking steps to restructure our debts and the impact it will have on our ability to pay as well. Okay. If you go through the statement, you are linking it to some statement issued by S&P, that is the International Ratings Agency. And again, they appear to be a little bit optimistic going forward because of this program that we've done. First, it will have an impact on our interest payments for this year alone in terms of the amount of money we set aside to honor these debts. That means that there will be some space for government to rake in more money, to do other developmental projects, to also restructure the economy and help the economy going forward. So they have seen some optimism there going forward, and they think that if government has taken these steps, then they would also review their warning to investors that government is highly risky, they can't pay their debts, and more to a status that indicates that government might be able to honor its debt obligations going forward.
All right, grateful, George Yafe, for your time here with me on Business Live. Let's stay a while longer on this development as we are joined via Zoom by Senior Finance Lecturer of the University of Cape Coast, Seriam Kawo, for more. Grateful, Mr. Kawo, you could join us on Business Live. Now, how will this play in the whole conversation about getting a board-level agreement with the IMF?
Yeah, when you read the statement, is welcoming news for bondholders, and it's going to work hard, work in such a way that our external bondholders will also fit into the entire arrangement. The entire issue of the coupon rates that culminates into the interest rates that we find in the country are very high. And so the first statement, as we have stated, is that once we are able to ensure that we are now having a rate between 10 and 15%, that will become the benchmark value for bonds that will be issued and for any other fixed income rates that we have in the country. And that one way or the other is going to affect the treasury bill rates that we see currently. That will also ensure that government do not borrow unnecessarily and pay so much interest on this amount of money. This arrangement, as we have done successfully, will send signal to the IMF and then the international community is that government of Ghana is committed to ensuring that the right thing is done. And I am very optimistic that once we go through this successfully, we would be in a position to restore our economy to the level it was. Remember, there was a time during this particular process where we have the market to book value of investments, and then people were rushing to take their investment, and we told these people that they should relax, they don't have to go and do it. It is a market that is playing out, they should relax. And these things that are coming will bring a lot of confidence into the Ghanaian economy.
Mr. Kawo, respectfully, we do know that by 13th March, payments should be made. Are we certain that that will happen?
Yeah, so when you hear Wafi is on the ground and he is with the people over there, the bonds have matured, the coupons must be paid by a certain date. Government decided that, okay, let us wait, and then they issue out a statement. We also remember that when the rating agencies came up, the finance minister and some other people in government looked down upon these rating agencies, where they said Africa should have their own rating agencies. But you would see that the finance ministry is quoting these rating agencies today to say that they have rated and that right things are being done. And so if government did not fulfill this particular promise they are making now through the statement they have issued out, what it will mean is that it will send a bad signal to the external bondholders, and that will gravely affect the negotiation and maybe the debt cancellation and all those that they are seeking for. And hence, I am very sure that government will not want that to happen, and so they will ensure that they do the needful.
Now, given a firm date about honoring these old bonds and coupon payments, what do you make of the ministry's comment on S&P's rating?
Yeah, so it is good that the ministry had come out again to look at the S&P's rating, that yes, they've selective default, but then we have moved out of the selective default to a higher grading. And the ministry had actually looked down upon these rating agencies, Fitch, Standard, S&P, and the rest. But then coming out to say that, yes, these agencies are now giving us a good rating. And for that matter, it tells us that our program is successful, tells us that the ministry is taking the market very serious now. And it is not like those of us in Ghana that will not care about some of these things because we may not understand them very well. But the markets where we are going, there is the need for us to work hard and get back to that particular market. So talking positively about the S&P ratings, and for that matter, any other ratings that we have, would also tell the investor community, especially the international community, that we are taking them serious, and that whatever they say, we are incorporating it into our policies and decisions that we make over time. And hence, we are ready to come back to the international financial market to do business with them.
Great. So, Siriam, I would want you to stay on as I take this story for your reaction afterwards. Now, the group of G20 large economies around the world have agreed to establish a creditor committee to work on Ghana's request for debt cancellation. This was finalized at the end of the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors meeting in India. There is more in this report.
Was captured in a communique issued at the end of the meeting, which brought together finance and central bank governors of these 20 developed economies. They maintain that they look forward to the formation of the official creditor committee to work on Ghana's request for debt treatment. This is the second group of countries that have agreed to establish a creditor committee after the Paris Club of Creditor Nations also agreed on a similar move to deal with Ghana's concerns when it comes to debt cancellation and restructuring of the country's debt stock. The establishment of the committee is more to formalize the process and help fast-track negotiations to cancel Ghana's debt, as well as establish a forum for these debt cancellation. However, at a time that China has decided not to be part of this group of nations willing to negotiate on Ghana's debt restructuring, one is not sure on how any action taken will impact on the country's debt sustainability going forward. Ghana owes about $29 billion to these international creditors. The Paris Club accounts for $1.9 billion. Multilaterals stands at $8.1 billion. China's debt alone is estimated at $1.7 billion.
So, Siriam, there you have it. Is the resetting of interest rates a good thing, you would say?
Come again with the question.
I'm asking that, is the resetting of interest rates a good thing?
Yes, it's a good thing. It's something that would harm the one who has borrowed the money to you, because if you reset the interest rate and then this rating had gone down, that in itself is a haircut. And amounting to a haircut would harm the person, but that gives you a leeway to manage your debt. And hence, going back to ask for a debt cancellation, we shouldn't just assume that, yes, we'll go to the G20, the creditor committee will be set up, and whatever we tell them, they would do it. We have heard some ambassadors, especially that of Germany, saying that, yes, we would want to help, but it will be based on some conditions. And the conditions, he has listed one, that the number of ministers that we have in Ghana is more than those that we have in my country.
Yeah.
You cannot go for debt cancellation or debt restructuring with them. You want them to forego certain things when you are not ready to sacrifice. And that is why, so these people, once the committee is set up, a lot of things are going to play around them. And hence, government must also be very careful what they are going to do to convince these individuals. And I'm very sure, I'm excited because once we are calling for these things, this international community, the bilateral and then the multilateral entities, what they are going to do is that they ensure that we do the right thing. If you are not going to do the right thing, they will not be able to buy into it. And that is why I'm presuming that China is feeling reluctant to come in to look at some of these debts that we are talking about. And Ghana is going to find a tough time dealing with China, looking at the reports that we have in the Galamsey environment, the issue about some of their repatriation of their some of their citizens that we have. Some of these things are going to play a great role in how we do business with China.
All right, Sarah, we would want to leave the conversation here. We'll certainly come back to you as and when we need more clarification. Sarah Mkawo is a senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast. Now, ratings agency S&P has indicated its intention to raise Ghana's credit rating if there is more pronounced economic recovery and a strengthening of balance of payments performance that improves debt sustainability. In its upside assessment of the outlook of the economy, it said a strong fiscal economy will reduce pressure on government financing. There is more in this report.
S&P Global Rating also said it could lower the local currency rating over the next 12 months if unexpected negative policy developments undermine access to financing from local markets or there is a significant delay in the International Monetary Fund Board approval of Ghana's extended credit facility. It said any delay in the approval of a fund support program would likely further damage local investor confidence and could lead to a recourse to central bank financing amid worsening inflation and currency dynamics. S&P on February 24 raised its long and short-term local currency sovereign credit ratings on Ghana to CCC+ from selective default. This was after a successful domestic debt exchange program. The rating agency said the stable outlook on the long-term local currency ratings reflects the government's improved refinancing profile and reduced cost of debt as a consequence of its domestic debt rescheduling.
A reminder, you're still watching Business Live here on the Joy News channel with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Still to come, prices of petrol and diesel are expected to fall between 3.7 and 4.04%. We'll hear from the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana shortly. Welcome back. This is Business Live. Now, prices of petrol and diesel are expected to fall between 3.7 and 4.04% beginning Thursday, 1st of March. That's according to the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC. Now, this follows a decline in the prices of products on the world market, despite a marginal depreciation of the cedi to the dollar during the period. COPEC said these expected drop in prices of petrol and diesel for the second time running since the second pricing window of February does not have any correlation with the much-touted gold for oil program. Meanwhile, the price of liquefied petroleum gas will go up by about 4%. Executive Secretary of COPEC, Duncan Amwa, joins me on phone for more on this. Grateful, Duncan, you could join me on Business Live. What then is the reason for the expected decline in fuel prices, if not the gold for oil program?
You do have the variables that contribute largely to fuel prices or pricing being quite favorable to if you are a Ghanaian consumer now. International benchmarks, like you quoted, are clearly relatively lower than they were over the past 2 weeks. And again, you also have a situation where the city may not be our biggest gainer, but creditably has also performed relatively well, though it also lost marginally. If you put the two together and you swing these numbers, you are simply looking at a situation where for petrol, diesel, like you said, you could do between 2 to 5% reduction, except that for LPG, due to an overbearing international market demand, especially at this time for heating purposes, for gas and all of that, it is likely if you are in country, you would have to probably pay a little more for the price of LPG starting Wednesday, the first day of March 2023.
Duncan, help me understand why it is very difficult for you to appreciate the Gold for Oil program. Why are you opposed to it?
Well, the very challenges that confront all of us, the very opportunities that exist for all of us to have a relatively stable petroleum market are things that are known. So if you recall in my earlier submission, I had said you have international benchmarks being lower, and then you also have the city having performed quite creditably. So the very things that we need to confront as a people if we want to stabilize, or for that matter, even reduce fuel prices for Ghanaians, they are known. Where we want to go and tinker and play with a certain, gold for oil expedition, much to the neglect of finding solutions to the things confronting high or creating high fuel prices for all of us at the pumps, then we would insist that focus on the things that do matter and cut the expedition. Gold for oil, too many questions unanswered, too many issues. When you push Bank of Ghana, they refer you to BOS. When you push BOS, they say, oh, go check with Bank of Ghana. So clearly, we do not even have a blueprint. It is an expedition that we want to embark upon, much to the neglect of the very proven bits that have yielded the kind of positive numbers that we are likely to benefit from Wednesday. If you recall, in November, December, the Bank of Ghana, through its the Forex Exchange regulatory framework, was able to reduce the city's depreciation and rather make sure again. Within that period, you saw fuel prices reduce, both petrol and diesel reduced by averages of 7 Ghana cedis a litre, and that had nothing to do with any Gold for Oil program. So there's a proven procedure, there's a proven solution that stands to benefit every Ghanaian. You wonder why the Bank of Ghana would not be made to focus on these proven solutions, but rather would want to get back to an experimentation with BOS, something we have seen in the past during the previous government regime, where BOS was made to just go out there and trade. The eventual outcome is that BOS left all of us with hundreds of millions of dollars of debt that you and I have to pay through a certain BOS margin. So we are not ready for any expedition. If we want to find a solution, they are there. If we also want to go on a certain trading expedition, exposing Bank of Ghana's resources to that kind of risk, then we can be talking of a certain Gold for Oil, whose blueprint as of today, nobody seems to have.
All right, Duncan. So in a minute, per your projections, are we expected to see further decline in prices in the subsequent months coming?
Well, the subsequent months could be interesting, especially if you look at the geopolitical development. You could have prices decline, you could have them go up equally. So we would not put any numbers out there for now. but it's likely for the month of March, Ghanaians are likely to get a favorable fuel pricing regime simply because the benchmarks look quite positive as we speak.
Thank you very much. Duncan Amwa is the Executive Secretary of COPEC Ghana speaking to us there. We've got Money Lab for you.
Hello, welcome to Money Lab. My name is Jifa Fiati. In today's episode, we are looking at types of insurance policies on our market. There are two broad types. We have the life insurance and we have general business. For general business, there are several policies you can take to protect your operations. Let's go into the various classes of insurance. For property insurance, you're simply taking an insurance cover to protect your property against fire, against theft, against burglary. So this property could be your furniture, it could be your machinery. Again, on liability insurance, you are taking an insurance cover to protect your operations against third-party liabilities. Bye for now.
Grateful for being part of the bulletin. I am Pious Kojo Backah. You can always get business stories when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Always a pleasure serving you. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye-bye.